Hey guys, Duane here. Hope everyone's having a good week. So what I want to talk about today is budgeting in retirement and also making some tough decisions as needed. Um, right after I retired, I was still living in Los Angeles and I was paying $1,100 a month in rent, which actually for Los Angeles, that's pretty good. Pretty good. Probably, I think it was like around 1900 for what I was renting, 500 square foot, one bedroom, one bath. It was a part of a duplex. But I knew going into retirement that my biggest single expense was going to be housing. So how do I deal with that, get it as low as possible or totally eliminate it? So what I tried to do initially is my plan was going to be to buy like a piece of land, like somewhere in Southern California, and get a tiny house, which would have been awesome. That would have been so cool to have that tiny house. But I found some cheap pieces of land around the area, and I actually found one for $10,000. It was over again in the foothills of the Sierra, because if you're trying to do that in Los Angeles or any big city, it's not going to work as far as the price goes. But what happened is that when I found that piece of land for $10,000, beautiful view out in the countryside, my thinking was to put a tiny home, just plop it right down on there. And hey, I mean, I'll spend like what, 10 to 20,000 bucks on getting things hooked up and stuff. Hey, I'll be fine, right? No. So, number one, the zoning rules said that if I'm going to put a tiny house down, or actually I couldn't put a tiny house down there. I could if I had regular building permits already to build a house, okay? So there was number one. You have to have plans in place to put a permanent dwelling on that area, on that piece of land. Number two, I'm thinking, okay, well, I can live my tiny house here for a little while, and I guess I'll just, take water up and supply it to the tiny house, which would have been fine, but permanent water source, I needed to hook into the city water, or build a well. The big problem I had with building a well was that that area was very rocky, very hard. So it was going to cost a lot of money, $25,000 to build a well. If I wanted to get city water, that would have cost about $40,000 just to bring water to that property. Yeah. And on top of that, electricity. Okay, you can do solar. I mean, that's a little, it's some money up front. Could do that. But if I wanted to hook up to the city electricity, excuse me, there was a telephone pole about 100 yards from my house, okay? So if I could have just hooked that up, put another pole coming to my house, sure, it hooks it up, right? You're all ready to go. Not so fast. Another $50,000 to do that. So my dream of like taking a little tiny house, plopping it down on a piece of land, hey, I'm all set, there's my housing expenses, done. No. So what I finally did is again in Southern California, in more of the rural area, which I'm located now, I actually found a place with much cheaper property value prices on top of a hill with a great view, and I'm only paying $850 mortgage for that. So that took my rent from $1,100 down all the way to $850. I was renting and now I'm owning. So some of the decisions, one of the big decisions you're going to have to make if you decide to retire early or really anytime is where are you going to live? What are your housing prices going to be? That can take a big chunk out of your budget because again, that's the number one, for most people, that's the number one expense in retirement is if your house is not paid off, you're paying rent or you're paying mortgage. That's the number one expense that most people have in retirement. So I've got that hooked up. I now own a place. I'm paying less than I was in rent and my monthly mortgage. So I'm happy about that. Another thing you have to decide, what about, just simple things like your car? Okay, I had a very nice luxury I was a BMW X3 that I was paying $300 a month for in for the loan. I had another, if I wanted to keep it, I would have another 5 years of loan payments on that. We're talking $300 a month. Now, it may not seem like a lot, but it all adds up. All adds up. So what I decided to do is, okay, I had a great time with this luxury SUV. Beautiful. I mean, just it was so much fun to drive. But I decided to sell it and get something more practical, because going into retirement, unless you have a lot of money saved up, you're going to have to make some of these choices, and a lot of them aren't that easy. So I ended up getting myself a nice little Kia Soul 2018 with about 60,000 miles on it for only $16,000. I have no car payment now. I've got a nice, reliable driver, everyday driver, that can get me around wherever I go, because I go back and forth to Los Angeles a lot. My girlfriend lives in Los Angeles, so I'm usually back and forth a couple times a month for 4, 5, 6, 7 days at a time. Anyway, you've got to make these decisions. You need to lower your housing costs. Your transportation is also a big cost. There are other things too, smaller things that add up. When I was in Los Angeles and working, I would go to Starbucks every single day. Every day. $6 a pop. Okay? It's great. I loved it. And because I was working, I could do that. But we're talking $180 a month on that. And again, these are little things, but they add up, right? $300 car payment, gone. $180 Starbucks, gone. My housing expenses were cut by $250 a month. Awesome. Yeah, I love Starbucks, but what would I rather have? A more secure, stable, easier retirement, or that I want to go get my venti mocha every single day? I can still do that where I live. It's still here, but I don't. So these are some of the decisions, some small, some large, that you're going to have to make a decision on. Do I want to do this? Do I want to retire bad enough? If you are on moderate income, like I am. If you retire with around $500,000, like I did. Okay? If you do decide to do that, it's not going to be luxury this, luxury that. You have to make some tough decisions. Maybe then it might not be tough for you, but some of them were for me. My Starbucks? Hello? Yeah, that was tough. Now, after a couple months into it, okay, I'm good. I have my Diet Coke, I'll be okay, I think. Anyway, just wanted to throw some of those things out that I've learned, like in the first, year and a half so of early retirement. And if you guys have any comments, anything you want me to talk about, please leave them below. And also, please, if you like this, please hit subscribe and also like. That'd be very, very good for my fledgling channel as it is. Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Talk to you soon.